Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Nourish with Purpose podcast. How are you, friend? I hope you are having the best Wednesday or day, regardless of when you are listening to this podcast. I woke up this morning in such a mood to record, and just as I was sitting down to press play, my neighbor started mowing. Love her, it's fine, but I decided I was just going to go ahead and start this anyway because I want to talk to you and I feel like I have a lot of variety to share with you today. If you are new to listening to this podcast, I would just encourage you, if you love this podcast, if you could just send this to a friend or rate and review on either Spotify or Apple Podcast. That would just mean so much to me this morning. And I think part of the reason why I'm so excited to start recording is because I hadn't checked any of the reviews written on Apple Podcast for a while. And there were 4 new ones, and they truly just made my heart so happy. To hear that people are enjoying this podcast means the world to me because, and I'm going to talk about this in a little bit too, but I feel like I've had this urge to start a podcast for probably the last 6 months, which is why, I took about 3 months to really think about it. But I remember there were so many different areas. I was like, well, maybe I'll start a YouTube channel or, I don't know, try to really grow on Instagram. And none of that has really ever been my goal. I just want to have reach, regardless of what that looks like. And I really feel like podcasting and just talking openly is what has been on my heart for a long time and I felt really called to do. And so to hear that you're also enjoying the podcast, it means so much. And the kind messages that I get, just know that those are never underappreciated. Those little bits of encouragement truly make my day, make my week. It just makes me really excited to get feedback on this. And so in any way that you want to share that with me, please do. If you have any questions about anything I talk about, please reach out to me. I am more than happy and willing to talk to you about whatever it is. And then also with that, if you do enjoy this podcast and you share it on your Instagram story or you leave a review, screenshot that and send it to me or a rating, and I will get you entered into the Wellness Bundle giveaway, which I'm drawing for at the end of the year. Really incredible things are going to be in that basket, a lot of things that were pivotal in my own health journey, and so I'm excited to gift that to one of you at the end of the year. Moving into the catch-up for this week, I have just felt so inspired to get into the cozy fall mood. I've prepped 2 loaves of sourdough, so I'm going to be trying that. Maybe you've seen the video where you do a sourdough loaf that is shaped like a pumpkin. I have had 8 people send me that video on Instagram, and so I'm like, okay, I need to make it. If this many people think of me when they watch this video, I have to execute it. So I'm making that today. I also have been making that homemade pumpkin spice syrup. I've also really been inspired to deep clean inside of our house and kind of transition. I'm not really a seasonal decorator. I don't like to spend the money on decorations for a season. I really just like to have pieces in my house that are pretty, I don't know, what would you say? Maybe like multi-seasonal. But I do like to shift things around a little bit, and so I've been doing that as I've been cleaning inside. I also went outside the other day and just pulled weeds and got rid of everything that's dead outside or that I know is kind of reaching the end of its life. And so that was really nice to just get things kind of picked up before, it starts getting colder and snow comes and all those things. There's a lot of maintenance to having a house, which I knew there would be, but having 3.5 acres, there's even more maintenance. And so luckily my husband is willing and able to help me do a lot of the stuff outside, so I didn't have to do that by myself. What else I've been doing is I've been lighting, I have a candle, it's a soy candle, and it smells like kettle corn, like caramel corn, popcorn. And it is the most delightful scent. And so lighting that in the morning when I'm making breakfast, making my coffee, really just makes our house smell really nice, and just, it gives me energy for the season to come. I love the changing of seasons. I would say that is the best part about living in Nebraska, is that we get to experience all seasons. And although I absolutely hate winter, my body absolutely hates winter, but at the same time, having the different seasons, it makes you really appreciate where you're at and what season you're in, right? I truly do not take a day of summer for granted. I feel like I don't really take a day of fall for granted either. It's that winter that I think just dreads on forever and ever. But, there are things that we'll talk about in the future that we can use, if you're in a colder climate, to really also enjoy that season of life as well. But I love fall. I've been getting up early and going for runs in the morning, and that is so nice. The sun is rising around 7 a.m. And so getting up a little bit earlier, getting outside while the sun is rising has just been so relaxing, and that brisk air hitting your face in the morning on a run is just like the most perfect thing. I also like to get out before there's a lot of traffic on our roads. Farmers are getting in the fields again, harvesting either soybeans or some corn or alfalfa. And so there's a lot of trucks in our area, and I don't like to be out running when that's going on. So if I get out early enough, I can really enjoy the run and I don't meet any cars or semis or anything like that. I've also been implementing candlelit dinners, which we don't do this all the time, but I hate overhead lighting. And when we bought our house, we have very limited overhead lighting, truthfully. We don't have any overhead lighting in any of the bedrooms except for the front one, which is my husband's office. Our living room has no overhead lighting, but our dining room and our kitchen do. And the light in the dining room is just, it's not warm. It's kind of a cold light. And so because the sun is setting earlier, turning that on just gives me the ick. Like, I could crawl out of my skin when I think about overhead lighting. It is just not something I enjoy. I feel like it's so harsh. And when it starts getting dark outside, one thing I really love to do is wind down with the sun. So kind of rising with the sun is something I'm trying to implement, but either also settling down with the sun. So turning off those harsh overhead lights when the sun is down and just having either lamps or no light or candlelight. And so we've been doing that some at dinner, just on days when I especially can't stand to have that light on, which is something we need to probably just change. But that is also something that I love. It's just candlelit dinners are just very relaxing and they feel kind of therapeutic. Moving into the segment of how I'm nourishing my mind, body, and spirit, I really feel good about the workout routine that I have created. So how I'm nourishing my body is I lead group fitness classes on Mondays and Wednesdays. So from 4:15 to 6, I'm exercising. On Mondays, we do lower body. And then on Tuesdays, I go for a long run. So this last week, I went 9.3 miles. Then on Wednesday, we do upper body and core. And then that's all that I do that day. And then Thursdays, like today, is when I'm recording this podcast. This morning, I just went for a 4-mile run. And one thing I want to insert, if you are just getting into running or you hate running and you dread going out to do it, download the Nike running app because they have guided runs on there. And so when I did my 9.3 mile run on Tuesday, which is my longer run day, I honestly was dreading it. I didn't want to go out and run. I hadn't ran for a week. And so I turned on the guided run and it made the time go so much faster. You have a coach in your ear along with a playlist and they're really like pushing you along, encouraging you the whole time. And to have that coach has made a huge difference for me. So I put one AirPod in so I can still hear traffic coming as I'm running, and to have that encouragement in your ear as you're going is been an absolute game changer for me. So then, yeah, like I said, Thursdays are my shorter run days, and then Fridays I will do a full body workout, typically something strength based. Because I'm running, I want to still be increasing my strength and my muscle tone, and so I'll do that, a full body workout, typically on the Form app, or I'll do a workout on my platform Balance. Either one of those, there's full body workouts and I love them. And then on Saturday, might be a run again, or maybe it is a Pilates workout, or maybe it's a rest day, or maybe it's a longer run. Saturdays kind of vary, and then I usually take either Saturdays or Sundays off as my rest day. So, either Saturday or Sunday I'm doing either a workout, Pilates workout, or I'm doing a run or biking. My husband and I did that one Saturday, which was super nice. Just a way to be active and stay active without, feeling, I don't know. It's just me staying active on the weekend because I do like to be active, and I notice my body feels better when I am active. So it really varies. It's up in the air, but that's what I love about this last week is I've been so consistent in those days. And yes, you can just go to the gym and do whatever you want, and that works for a lot of people. But for me to have days where I know what to expect, and I also know, well, darn, I don't want to miss this long run on a Tuesday because then I'm going to have to do my long run on a Thursday or on this weekend. And so it keeps me disciplined when it comes to exercise, and because exercise is something I've done for a while now, it's something that I truly enjoy, and so I try to do it right away in the morning when I wake up. That way it's not on the back of my mind throughout the rest of the day, and then I dreadfully do it in the evening, right? I do it right away. How I'm nourishing my mind is I've started reading before bed, and so I have this diffuser, this essential oil diffuser, and it has red light on it. And so I do a little red light therapy. I turn it on the red setting. And so there's like a red glow in the room. I turn on a candle, I light a candle, and I make sure I've taken a shower before I get into bed, put on my pajamas, get super cozy. And from about 8:30 or 9 to 10 is my prime reading time. So I try to take an hour before bed and read. And I've noticed my sleep is so restful when I do this. And also it just allows me, because throughout the day, I could say I'm going to read. I do a lot of reading for work because I'm trying to stay on top of the research coming out. But at the same time, typically me reading gets pushed to the back burner if something else comes up. And so having that designated hour to read, not for work, but read a book that I truly enjoy, typically it's nonfiction, that is just something I look forward to every single day now. And the book that I'm reading right now is the Summer I Turned Pretty series. So I read the first 2 books and the half of the third book in about a week and a half. I've kind of been flying through these. I have a Kindle, which I do love, not for reading books where I'm learning, but for reading books just for pure enjoyment. And so those books are so darn good. It took a little bit for me to get into the first one, I will admit. But once I did, I'm sucked in, and I'm vigorously reading that third book to kind of close up the series because truly love them so much. How I'm nourishing my spirit is today I woke up a little bit earlier. So I woke up at 6:30. And if you've listened to previous podcasts, you would know that I dread getting up in the morning, and getting out of bed is something I've really been pushing myself to do. I could allow myself to sleep till 8, right? I typically don't have calls until 8:30, but then I feel behind the whole rest of the day because I didn't start my day off how I would like to. So I got up at 6:30 this morning, and I took 30 minutes to just journal and read my Bible. And this might sound kind of bad, but this was truthfully the first morning where I started reading my Bible and I didn't want to put it down. And I think to get to that point just feels really encouraging because I don't know, reading the Bible can feel really dry sometimes. And I know there are the 1-year Bibles that you can read and you can get through it in a year. I'm not really following that plan. I just have started in the New Testament in the book of Matthew. And today I read 4 chapters of the book of Matthew because hearing how Jesus is healing people and how they would come to him and, maybe their son was demon possessed or their daughter was ill, they would touch his cloak. They would just touch him and he would be healed, or he would say the words and he would be healed. And it gives me goosebumps because I think in society today, we want to kind of mock at prayer when it comes to healing our body. Not everybody, right? But when we think that, Jesus and he wants you to be healed, he's going to help you through this period of time, right? It can feel like, yeah, okay, you're saying that, but like, is that really the reality? And when you read when Jesus was in person with people and he was healing them and reading all of the works of healing he did, it just makes me so encouraged to truly use the spiritual practice as healing. And that's something that I think is usually the last thing we think to do. Or maybe I'll speak for myself, that's the last thing I typically think to do. When I think back to my whole health journey, my first thing was not to pray over my body and pray for healing. It was to exercise longer, eat less, do all of these things that I could control. Whereas prayer, we are truly leaving it up to a higher power to heal. And not having that control, I think, is really scary for a lot of people. It's scary for me. But to read those stories, it's just been so interesting. And also just valuing time where you can be by yourself, because when Jesus did all of these works, he retreated. It says that so many times. Jesus retreated to the desert. He retreated to a mountain to spend time by himself and to spend time with God. And so often we think we need to be with people 24/7 or be on our phones when we have nothing to do, right? It's like we're always having information entering our mind and we're never sitting with ourselves and just reflecting. And I think there's a lot to be learned from Jesus, right? I mean, we know that, but just with how he retreated and truly just talked to God and had a conversation with him and reflected on the people that were hurting and the people that weren't following him or weren't listening to his teachings. And I'm just really enjoying that. So if you're looking at a place to start reading the Bible, I would recommend starting in Matthew in the New Testament and then just working your way through that. It kind of takes all of those major stories in the Bible, like Jesus feeding the 5,000, feeding the 4,000, and puts them into a chapter where you can read through all of those stories and just get a good overview of Jesus's life here on earth. So today we can move into the bulk of today's episode, which I really am just winging this because I felt like I needed to talk about it. And there's a lot of different areas I think it could go, but I want to talk today to you about your influence. I want to take a quick break to talk about something very near and dear to my heart, one-on-one coaching. Through my signature coaching program, Nourish to Flourish, I work with women to not only focus on decreasing their overall inflammation, but healing their relationship with food and doing the necessary mindset work to make these changes long-lasting. If you're looking to improve the way you feel and truly make changes that last a lifetime by identifying your exact source of inflammation, finding health-improving recipes that align with your goals, grocery shop with a nutrition coach, and be gracefully guided along the way towards absolutely feeling your best, this program is for you. Inflammation shows up in so many different ways. Some of these might be brain fog, fatigue, stress, chronic pain, bloating, anxiety, weight gain, abdominal pain, restless sleep, constipation, headaches, but know that it doesn't have to be this way for you. Learn more and apply by going to my website, which will be linked in today's show notes. Feel good in your skin, never count calories again, heal your relationship with food, ditch the scale, and let's nourish to flourish. And this really came to me because as you're creating content or you're on social media, you see all of these quote influencers, right? These people that are held on a pedestal that they say something and we would do it. They say go buy this product, we instantly go buy that product. And it made me realize how impactful the people that are influencing you have on your life, and also the influence that you can have on other people's lives. And so there is just so much out there for you to constantly be taking in, right? So I want you to ask yourself right now, what is the quality of the content that you're consuming? because nourishing your body does not just include the foods you eat. It includes what you are allowing into your mind, right? What you are thinking about, what you are digesting in contents of reading, right? Are you reading books that are, not that they always have to be self-help books, right? You can read books for fun, obviously, but are you taking in books that are encouraging you or maybe just making you feel happy? Or are you reading dark books that are scary and making you anxious and depressed about what's happening around you? There was a book I was reading, I think it's called The Housemaid. Gosh, I don't know. It's a really popular, Rita McFranklin, maybe? I might be butchering that. I think she's the author, though. I've read so many books this year, which was a goal of mine, but at the same time, that book made me feel like very hypersensitive because it was talking about all of these husbands who were unfaithful to their wives and how this housemaid then would go in and she would kill their spouse. And I mean, it sounds very dark and twisted, and it really was, but it just made me feel so dark. And I realized that, yes, that was a good book. It was entertaining. I didn't not like it. But at the same time, did it make me feel the best? No. But The Summer I Turned Pretty, the book series I just started, it's about being, on the coast and being in a beach house and spending time with family, friends, and it's just positive. And so I think that also goes back to social media, right? And I know we're probably all tired of hearing how toxic social media can be for your mental health, right? I feel like that is so oversaid and underpracticed. Whereas if you're following somebody on social media and they are constantly posting photos that make you feel absolutely terrible about yourself, I can think of some examples. I'm not going to say who they are, but they post photos of themselves or them in a swimsuit or them doing certain activities, and I just get so jealous and I start comparing my life, and it's spiraling of I'm not posting enough, my life doesn't look perfect enough, my house isn't clean enough, my cooking videos aren't aesthetic enough. And then where does that really bring you? I think there's so much pressure on us, and this is different too if you are somebody who is on social media and a lot of your living comes from social media. I talk about it in this way because I get clients from social media. I get just personal interactions on social media. That is a platform that I communicate with other people through. And I love it. I really do. But I've been in this headspace of I need to post every single day because this person's growing faster than I am. And it's this head game. And I was sitting in bed the other day reading, and I was thinking about how happy I was just in bed, cozy, reading. And I was thinking how ridiculous it is that I think that I need to do X, Y, and Z in order to, be looked at as a productive or, contributing member of society when it comes to being on social media. Social media, does it really even matter? I mean, that is where that fine balance comes. Because for me, it truly does matter. For my business, for helping other people, I do want to help other people through what I post, and I want to be a positive influence. But if the thought of I have no inspiration, I feel so uninspired, but I need to post something tomorrow, why am I putting that pressure on myself? Is there really a reason behind that? And so that is where, who you're following is so important. I always say follow 2 to 3 people that are an expert in that area you're interested in. So if you are really interested in learning about your health, follow 2 to 3 people that are all kind of in the same realm, right? Not 3 people that are contradicting each other, but 3 people that you like, know, and trust. I say that pretty frequently when it comes to foods. Find products you like, know, and trust. Find people that you like, know, and trust. I've had this one client, and I absolutely adore her, and she asks the most wonderful questions in this. But at the same time, I will say she always has questions that are contradicting maybe what another person is saying. And that's good, right? We should be questioning people, but You have to get it to the point where you're not looking at every influencer in the whole health and wellness space and you're taking every snippet of information, because if you do that, you're going to have information overload. And I could kind of sense that was where this client was getting to, is that it was just information overload. There was way too much that she was taking in, way too much that was, yes, important to know, but not something that she necessarily needed to be concerned about, right? There's this one doctor out there, he tells you spinach is terrible for you and that you shouldn't eat spinach, you should avoid all leafy greens. Okay, if you look at nearly every health article, they're going to say that leafy greens improve your health. So, I mean, as somebody who does not use that, use those blinders, right? If you just took in every information one day, spinach is terrible for me, I should never eat it. Then you go to maybe my page and I'm like, anti-inflammatory foods, that would be those leafy greens. You're like, wait a second, this person just said it was bad for me. Now you're saying that it's good for me. That doesn't make any sense. At some point, we need to be able to filter what we're intaking, and you have to decide for yourself what you're going to believe. And what I would say is that you should always believe, or even just, not saying you have to wholeheartedly believe it, but look at those 2 to 3 people. And if they say something where you're questioning it, then look it up and do your own research, right? You don't have to take everything as gospel, but at the same time, if you trust somebody, maybe take their word sometimes, rather than stressing yourself out over having to do research over everything they tell you. Maybe just decide that if it's not something that's going to harm your health one way or the other, maybe it's okay just to trust other people. And so that was kind of a long-winded way of just saying, pay attention to the people that are influencing you, because we also have the ability to influence other people. And I'm going to talk about that here shortly. But when I think about the most negative people in my life, those are the people that are intaking the most negative information. So, are you somebody who something bad happens to you and the first thing you think to do is to either call a friend and tell them all of this negative stuff that just happened to you, or get on Facebook and totally, blow it up with all of these negative rants about things that are happening in your life? Or are you the person who takes that moment, you learn from it, you keep it internal, you maybe share it with your spouse at the end of the day, but your instant reaction is not to just go to whoever's going to listen to you and share this negative information, but instead it's to internalize it, think about it, and then talk it through with someone. And so if you think about the most negative people in your life, like what are they intaking day to day? Maybe they're on their phone just way too much, period, and the sources they're taking in are not positive. Maybe they're the person that always has the news channel on. They're always reading or watching the news, global, local, everything. Maybe they are somebody who's really into conspiracy theories or debunking everything happening in the world. That is a very deep hole that you can dig yourself if you are somebody who takes in all of the conspiracy theories on TikTok and you just do a deep dive into all of them. Although, yes, I'm not saying that's a bad thing to do, but is that all you're doing all day long, is thinking that everything in the world is out to get you? What is your mindset like around that? If you think about the most positive people in your life, what are they intaking? Are they taking time for themselves away from social media? Are they leaving their phone on silent and in their purse when you're at coffee with them? Are they going out for walks or moving their body? Are they choosing nutrient-dense foods and really supporting their health with what they're intaking? Do they have somebody they can talk to, like a therapist or a spouse or a close friend, to really, like I said, internalize and then debunk maybe something going on in your life with someone else? Those people are positive for a reason, right? They're positive because they're choosing not to take in the influence of all the negativity around them. Because if you want to take in negative information, you can find it around every single corner. It doesn't just have to be social media. It can be people. It can be, books, like I had said before. It can be music. Music, that is an interesting hole that I'm not going to get into. But if you look at the top 20 music, a lot of that is really, really dark deeper meanings behind it. So are you listening to music that is uplifting and encouraging and makes you happy? Or are you listening to maybe some rap or I don't even know, different genres of music that are actually like kind of demonic? Because that's also going to influence you even if you don't notice it. It's kind of like that subconscious is being influenced and your conscious self isn't really aware of it. And so the positive people in your life, like I said, they're positive for a reason. They're doing things that are benefiting their health and they're being positively influenced, which in return makes them a positive influence on other people. So you can kind of see there's that chain where, okay, you're influenced by other people almost all day long. How those people influence you reflects how you're going to influence other people. Because whether you think about it in the terms of social media or just in your close friend group, if you are generally a happy, positive person, maybe think of yourself as a light for other people. If you are that, you are going to attract people that are going to positively influence you. And so if you're able to surround yourself with positivity and kind of silence out the negativity the best you can, I truly think you're going to notice such a significant improvement in how you feel. And I also want to talk about what you can do when you have negative influences in your life that you can't really control. Okay, so let's say a family member, they are always coming up to you. They're always super negative. They're always talking to you about COVID or the news or the president or vaccines or whatever it is that maybe you would rather not choose to surround yourself with. What I would encourage you to do is to create some space between that person and you. And this doesn't have to be done in a rude way. You don't even have to tell this person that you are creating space between you two, right? You can just maybe limit the dinners you go to. If you have family dinners every single week, or if you do it every other week, or holidays, you see this person, right? It's not saying avoid them at all costs because that's going to hurt them and it's going to hurt you. But what you can do is you can just create a little bit more separation than normal. So maybe this is somebody that maybe if it's a friend, they want to go get coffee with you every week or every other week, or they want to study with you all the time. Or maybe it's a coworker that wants to work beside you at the desk. Just create ways to build a little bit of distance. So this could look like finding a different place to work, or deciding that instead of meeting up with this person, I'm just going to study at home. I want to save some money, not buy a coffee. I'm just going to do this from home. It doesn't have to be an intentional, you telling this person, you're always negative all the time. I can't stand to be around you. You don't make me a better person. Like, that's not uplifting them and it's not uplifting you. So having those tough conversations maybe needs to happen sometimes, but also other times you can just gradually create space and maybe allow for a little bit of distance there to then decrease the negative influence you have in your life. Okay, another way, unfollow all of those negative people on social media, even if it's a close friend, even if it's a family member. I know that might feel very extreme, and if you don't feel comfortable doing that, then maybe just block the information that they're sharing. I know on Facebook and Instagram, I believe you can just mute or silence their post notifications. So that's going to allow you, then you're not intaking what they're saying because you're creating that space again. All right. Another thing that I've done in my own life, which this doesn't even have to do with somebody being negative towards me, but I've silenced all notifications on my phone. And so I also, a majority of the day, my phone is on silent because I had gotten into this, just this craze of needing to check social media all the time, needing to check my text, needing to text somebody back, and it's just like all of that intake is super overwhelming and it makes me feel very negative and irritated. When I constantly have somebody sending me 7 text messages in a row, it's not a diss to the person sending the text. I like being reached out to and I like receiving those texts, but it's me getting notification after notification when I'm trying to focus on a task at hand and I can't because my phone is pinging every 3 seconds. That was very, very stressful for me and very overwhelming. So I'm not telling that person, don't text me 7 times, because I want them to. I want them to reach out to me, but I'm silencing my phone because that's something that I myself can control. I can control when I check my phone, when I look at my phone, when I open social media, when I get a notification. Those are all things we can control. And those also might be things that are negatively impacting your influence because it's just adding extra stress in your life. And so I want you to think about that too. Are you somebody who responds back in 3 seconds to everyone? Or do you give it a few hours? Do you have designated times in the day when you check social media, or do you check it constantly throughout the day? Are you productive in what you're doing at work? Do you feel accomplished at the end of the day? That's going to improve how you feel about not only yourself, but how you impact other people around you. But if you don't feel at the end of the day that you have accomplished much because you've been on your phone so much, or you have been surrounded around so much negativity, whether it's the news or whatever that is, if that is something that you have been consuming all day, at the end of the day, when you finally see your roommates or your spouse or your pet, you're not going to be excited to see them and happy to share what you did today. You're going to be negative and you're going to feel down, and then that's going to negatively influence other people. And so I know that was kind of like a long-winded way of just protecting your energy, I guess is what people say these days, is just protecting that positivity that you have. And this isn't to say you have to be positive all the time, because I'm definitely not. I think social media has a way of skewing that to make people think somebody's like, maybe me, for example, I'm always doing something. I'm always cooking. I'm always exercising. I'm always relaxing. There's people I follow that feel like they're always traveling. And that's not negative stuff for me to take in, but it can very quickly be something that makes me feel negative about myself if I don't protect my own energy and feel happy in what I do day to day. And so I just would encourage you to not only think about who's influencing you, but how you're influencing other people. And I want to kind of share personally where my desire to influence comes from in life, not social media so much, because we think of influence, we think of that immediately, and that's where my mind has been going this whole time. But when I'm around other people, I truly want them to feel excited to see me. I want them to feel like they left our conversation lighter, happier, more confident, more encouraged. I just have never really wanted to be that person where you walk into a room and people are like, ugh, they're here. I suppose I'm going to have to listen to them complain about X, Y, Z. Not saying complaining to a friend isn't totally normal, because it is. But I don't want that to be somebody's initial gut reaction of seeing me or seeing something that I post. I don't want them to fear, oh, what's she going to be complaining about today? No, I want people to feel encouraged and happy around me, or with what they see that I post, or listening to a podcast. I want you to feel encouraged when we leave this podcast. I don't want you to think, wow, she just spent the last 45 minutes complaining to me about her health or all the things she was struggling with. Because I just really don't think people want to hear about that all the time. And maybe this has been in a different light for me because I work with women daily to help them through their struggles. And I know that if I was to seek somebody to help me with my health struggles, I wouldn't want them to enter into a conversation and feel negative and feel uninspired and feel unencouraged to help me. If they came into a conversation with me and were like, well, how are you feeling today? And I told them, and they're like, yeah, me too. My day's been terrible. I've had nothing good happen this week. Everything that I try to do is just never successful. I can't get enough, I don't know, whatever. I'm not even going to continue because that's just as negative and I don't want to hear it. But if I was to work with somebody and that's how they approach the conversation, I think I would really question why they were the one helping me. You know, like if you go to the doctor or you go to a coach or you go to a friend and you need a vote of confidence, you need encouragement. If everything they said back to you was negative, and if it was self-centered about themselves and all the negativity in their life and not truly helping you through what you're struggling with, I would really question, like, who is the professional in this point, you know, in this example, right? So when I meet with clients, I try to be so encouraging because people need that, right? If you feel crappy day to day, your health is failing, you have never found anything that works for you, you do not want to talk to somebody else that's complaining about their health. You want to talk to somebody who is going to encourage and inspire you to take a hold of your health and build those habits that are long-lasting, that make you feel really good and help you find the source of whatever it is that you're struggling with. And so that's really where it comes down to for me, is I've taken that same energy into almost every interaction I have with people outside of that. Not to say I'm always positive, because I'm sure plenty of you that are listening know that that is not always the case for me. And especially my dear husband, he has to hear me complain sometimes about a lot of things. But when you have one person that you can confide in, 1 to 2 people, right? That is where it's not so much of like you are bringing them down with you as it is it's just somebody for you to talk through things with. But if you're going to influence every interaction you have with a person that day with saying how negative your life is, that's when your influence in general starts to become very, very negative. So I know that was kind of a lot of just me chit-chatting at you. I hope there were snippets in that you could take with you outside of this podcast to just really think about your influence day to day. Are you bringing positivity and light to other people, or are you bringing Debbie Downer energy? Because although sometimes, yes, that can be okay, I want you to think about who you are as a person, and if most of your interactions during the day are making people happy, or are you the person that walks into the room where they're like, ugh, what health issue do they have that I have to listen to today? Or, and that's not to say sometimes that's okay, right? I'm not trying to make you feel bad about yourself if you find yourself more in that negative light. Okay, this isn't a diss to you. It's just a chance maybe for you to evaluate where you're at, and then where those areas are where you could maybe improve your mood, and how you could really nourish yourself, mind, body, and spirit. So then when you pour into other people, you're pouring from a full cup, not an empty cup. Because when you pour from an empty cup, you really are just giving people the bare minimum, right? You're just getting by. You're helping your family minorly, right? If you are a mom and you don't exercise, or you don't nourish your body with good foods, or maybe you physically feel bloated or uncomfortable all day long, or you have low self-confidence, your cup is very, very empty starting off the day, and it does not increase in its volume, right? It's still empty at the end of the day. So then when it comes down to taking care of your family, how are you going to take care of them if your cup is empty? You really need to fill your cup before you fill others. And that is a concept that I've really begun to implement. And I think it goes really well with this podcast episode, because when you're pouring from a full cup, when you have moved your body in some way, you've read a book, you've drank your water, you feel good about what you're eating, you feel good about the information you're taking in day to day, you feel good about who's influencing you, you feel spiritually sound, you have a church or a Bible study that you go to, your cup is getting full. And then you're able to pour into other people with a full cup, which looks so much different than when you pour from an empty cup, right? You can be encouraging and inspiring and helpful to other people rather than just doing the bare minimum to get by and to maybe take care of those people in your life. So that's just something I want to encourage you to think about as you move forward. And I hope that this episode helped you just think a little bit deeper about your influence and who's influencing you. So to wrap up this conversation, let's go ahead and close it in prayer. So dear Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for the fall weather that we have and just the changing of seasons. I ask that as we enter into these new seasons, that we just feel like an energy like none other, that we feel inspired to fill our own cups and maybe develop the routine that we need to pour into other people with a full cup rather than day-to-day feeling empty, right? I just ask that the influences around us maybe begin to expose themselves and be more positive, or that we're really able to use the knowledge that you've given us to decipher what is a positive influence and what's a negative influence. And if the person listening to this episode finds themselves more in that negative headspace most of the time, I would just ask that you would guide them along towards maybe filling their day with just moments of positivity and transform their hearts to be a light to other people. I just also ask that this episode is not overwhelming or confusing or frustrating for people, but rather it serves to just encourage, inspire, and make them feel confident in their ability to really execute what we've talked about today, and that they just feel your love and guidance along every changing season that happens in their life. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. All right, so again, if you listened to this podcast today and you loved it, feel free to share it with a friend. If you want to follow along with my life on social media, you can find me at Bailey with 2 Y's, Seaton with 2 N's on almost every platform. So I look forward to connecting with you there, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.